Hello, friends. Welcome to Pod Mavericks After Dark. I'm Kirk Henderson, joined as always by Josh Bowe. We are also editors over at Mavs Moneyball. You are joining us at about 9:50 on Saturday, November 18th. The Dallas Mavericks fell to the Milwaukee Bucks, closing out their four-game road trip, losing 130 to 125. How you doing, Josh?
I'm doing pretty good. Saturday night. I feel like that game wrapped up faster than I expected. So, it's not 10 o'clock yet at local time. So we're riding high.
The way that first half cooked with 11 total fouls, I thought it was going to be a real short game. But then the Bucks kind of pressed the effort and really got to the free throw line a ton in the fourth quarter, which stretched out the game. For those who are watching and maybe don't know what happened, the Dallas Mavericks and Milwaukee Bucks played a really entertaining game. Low fouls in the first half, a lot of back and forth. It was 60 to 58 at halftime. Luka Doncic was playing pretty well. He had like a kind of an incandescent first quarter and kind of a brain fart second quarter. Kyrie Irving started off 1 of 8 and then couldn't miss for the better part of 2.5 quarters. Really remarkably entertaining performance from him. Just incredible circus shots. Just really, it's a Kyrie experience, really something. Unfortunately, during the fourth quarter, the Mavericks, despite having a double-digit lead, gave up an 11-0 run, which during the run, the Mavericks, I'm really curious for your take on this, Josh, but during the run, the Mavericks continued to get good shots in the flow of their offense, and nothing would fall. I think they missed 3 or 4 threes where the defender closed late, and then the ball just didn't drop. Jason Kidd called a timeout when they were down 1, and I think it was like right before Giannis's Luka pair of free throws, which they're up 1. Luka gets fouled. He misses both free throws. Derek Lively fouls Giannis on the second free throw miss. Giannis hits 2, and the Bucks never trail again. I think a lot of people were really mad about this game, and it's funny, I got a couple of messages to the effect of people assuming I'd be mad. But things went wrong at the wrong time, and then I'm looking at what really went wrong for the Mavericks like throughout the game, and it really felt like a coin flip. What did you think, man?
Yeah, I thought this was like objectively a very entertaining game if you didn't have a rooting interest. Like it was just up and down, even with the free throws in the fourth quarter. I mean, Milwaukee shot 20, the Mavericks shot 10, so there weren't a lot of fouls called. There weren't a lot of turnovers. Milwaukee had 6. Dallas had 12. Milwaukee with 6 turnovers probably one of the big reasons they won the game because, Mavericks just couldn't get their offense frustrated at all. The fourth quarter was tough. The Mavericks missed 5 corner threes in the fourth quarter. And when you think about it, the corner three, actually, no, they made 1. They went 1 for 6 from corner 3 in the fourth quarter. And when you think about it, like corner 3 is like outside of a layup, that's the most optimal shot in basketball for the most part. And they missed 5 of them. Grant Williams missed 2 of them. He's been one of their best 3-point shooters all season. He also has 2 above the break. So 0 for 4 from 3 from Grant in the fourth. Yeah, that's part of your coin flip game. You make half of those threes, and it's a completely different game. So on that end of it, that sucks. It sucks to get bit by the shooting variance bug down the stretch when it's been such a closely competitive game all the way through. But there are definitely things that we can talk about that aren't just shooting variance that led to them losing. Number one of which they just, it's same song, different verse. They could not keep an opposing team away from the rim, and that just kind of cost them throughout the night. They bled buckets in the paint at the rim all night, which is not surprising when you're doing it against Giannis. A lot of teams bleed paint points when you're playing against Giannis. That's not just a Maverick specialty, but they could not get consistent stops throughout the game. And I think, they probably should have had a bigger lead at moments throughout the game if their defense was passable, and it just tonight.
Yeah, the Giannis of it all, I felt like they made a bit of a business decision where if he got within 5 feet on a drive, like if they hadn't gotten him to switch hands or spin or something like that, like if he had a head of steam, it felt like there was a bit of a business decision going on where the Mavericks just decided to get out of the way. I mean, a couple of Bucks guys that I follow were bitching about Giannis's free throws. I'm like, the Mavericks didn't really hit him. He just kind of like he'd get under the basket and lay it up like it was a YMCA game.
I wish Giannis shot more free throws in this game.
I know.
That would have been better than all the dunks and layups he had.
And so like that was a little interesting. And like the first half had some really, like, again, there just weren't a lot of fouls called. And I think like some of our fans are very frustrated about the refereeing in the fourth quarter. Luka was obviously frustrated with the reffing in the second quarter. I think Luka's game in particular was one sort of worthy of like hyper analysis, because in the second quarter, he was basically trying to foul bait and was not getting calls because the Bucks were playing like extreme drop coverage. And so again, I'm thinking back to a guy this summer who asked us to sort of explain that a little more. Essentially, the center, who's the help defense, is backing up as far as possible and daring Luka to take a mid-range shot, because it's not like Luka's coming downhill like LeBron James with the head of steam. It's
right.
It's a bit of a defensive scheme that's if you have a decent mid-range shooter, it doesn't work. Well, Luka adapted in the third quarter, which I'm not like surprised that Luka adapted, but sometimes Luka's so damn stubborn that he just doesn't take the easy shots and he's hunting for the difficult ones. And he connected on so many mid-range jumpers in the third and fourth quarter where he just looked outstanding. And then it was really, it wasn't surprising, but it was really disappointing to see him miss 2 free throws when he had been a mid-range sniper all game long. I understand he was mad about some of the calls. I mean, the Bucks play a kind of defense where they're so big and so many guys are straight up. You're not going to get a lot of calls. It's just the nature of it. I mean, Derek Jones Jr. ran into that headlong, who he probably had his worst game as a Maverick, going 0 for 7 for the field, because he was forcing the issue and the Bucks kept swatting him at the rim. It was really, I mean, this game, I more take away a lot of like when they play these really good teams, the really, really good teams, the teams you expect to be good, your Nuggets, your Celtics, your Bucks, obviously. I'm as a measuring stick game, the main thing I came away with that this one was a coin flip game, and the Mavericks still aren't big enough. Like that, just kind of big picture takeaways, like that, the shooting variance stuff, which came at the wrong time, but I thought the process was good. I'm not, as a guy who's prone to bullshit, insane overreactions, I'm kind of just like, this was annoying, and I wish they would have won. But if they would have won with kind of how the Bucks stormed back, it would have felt lucky.
Yeah, and this was it's a weird game because you look at the aggregate. I think I tweeted about this. Like, it's not a bad, like, losing to the Bucks at home when you're competitive with them every quarter. Like, it's not like there was never a moment the Mavericks were out of this game. I mean, it was back and forth all the way. Like, these were like Chuck Cooperstein said. I heard a little bit of the radio broadcast. He was like, this is a prize fight, 2 teams trading haymakers. Like, it was really one of those types of games. So you can't be too mad about a loss. Like, there's nothing really to hang your head losing to the Bucks at home in one of these kind of games. On the other hand, Bucks were on the second night of back-to-back. That
part sucks.
And they did not look tired in the fourth, which was not fair for the Mavericks, it looked like. So that part stunk. No Chris Middleton. I've had people tell me that was actually a plus for the Mavericks, but I mean,
Middleton's lost the ability to dribble this year.
I understand,
and they kind of force things through him sometimes.
Yeah,
he's a legacy player.
Yeah, I understand that, but I think still at the end of the day, you'd rather have him than not if you're Milwaukee. And you had a double-digit lead in the fourth, and you lost the game. That's tough. That makes the sting a little bit more. So I can understand both ways. I can understand someone looking at this game and be like, this is not a bad result. And then I can understand people being frustrated because just anytime you lose a double-digit fourth quarter lead, it's very frustrating as a fan. But process-wise, I thought this game was interesting because I feel like the Mavericks made more in-game adjustments in this game than I'd seen like in the games combined this season. The first half was hilarious. They were guarding Giannis like tight. Like he was catching the ball at the 3-point line or near the elbow,
and he's just
and they're right up in they're right up in his airspace. And I was just like, why? And he was just taking one dribble and scoring layups because he's Giannis. So that was pretty weird. I was like, why are you guarding him so tight? You want him to shoot, anything outside the paint that he shoots is a win. And then in the second half, I thought they did a much better job where they basically, whoever was guarding Giannis was basically in the paint almost the entire second half, I felt like. Really Giannis had 40. The way the first half was going, I thought he was going to have like 60. So
I think he only had 4 in the second quarter. And that was, he ended up with 40, obviously. So he had a big fourth quarter, but it definitely stymied him for a period of time.
He had a bad third quarter. He only had two makes in the third quarter. And that's when I thought the Mavericks had their best defensive quarter because they adjusted. They basically had Grant in the paint and then they have Lively as a rover. And basically they didn't let Giannis get easy layups. They were like, you can take a mid-range from the free throw line, you can take a three-pointer, but you're not just going to lay it up at the rim all night against us. And it definitely affected him. And then I think in the fourth quarter, the Bucks then adjusted, maybe got him on the move a little bit, didn't just have him line drive straight to the basket.
Yeah.
And Lively not being there definitely, because he was that help defender that I think impacted Giannis a little bit in the third quarter. Lively's foul trouble, I think, made that a little bit easier for him.
Right.
But at the end of the day, Giannis was 14 of 14 at the rim tonight. That's pure Giannis. That was a pure Giannis game. And again, like you said, Mavericks are just too small. I think big picture takeaway from this game, this is not a piping hot take. Like this is not a original or unique take from me, is I think for the Mavericks to get to where they want to go, which might not be this season, which is okay. You can't fix everything in one summer. I think the ultimate goal is that Grant Williams needs to be the 3 and not the 4. They really need to get that other wing position to be a player bigger than Grant, I think.
Sure. Grant's 6'5". We talked about this. He's not that much bigger than Kyrie. Like it's just a thing. And just to kind of get this out of the way, because I don't think this was why they lost. But the fact that Luka and Kyrie shot 8 free throws and Damian Lillard shot 10 was unfortunate. This was a game for me. There were a couple of shots in the third and fourth quarter where I thought Luka got fouled. Luka's this is paying for past sins. No other way around it. Dame Lillard is a foul merchant of the highest order. Like he just gets the most bullshit calls because he weighs 185 pounds. Like it's not fair. It's the way the game is reffed. Luka as a tank is not going to get the calls that Dame is going to get. It's maddening. And
same with like Giannis. Giannis is so big that refs call him to, remember Dwight Howard used to never get calls fouled on him because guys would bounce off of him. And it's like, they're still hitting him. Yeah. Just because he can tank it doesn't mean it's not a foul.
That's right. And so I understand that. I don't think it was why the Mavericks lost the game. There was a 2-play sequence that was pretty brutal, where Damian Lillard rose and fired on a 3-point attempt that missed, but they called a foul on Kyrie. And at first glance, it looked kind of nonsense, but then they showed the replay from like 3 different angles. And Kyrie had his, it's a foul by definition, because basically the further away from the rim you are at the NBA, the more likely they are to call a foul. It drives me fucking crazy. But by definition, it is a foul. And then I was like 1 or 2 possessions later, Tim Hardaway got bulldozed in the fourth quarter in the left corner on a 3-point attempt to a no call. That was a pretty painful bang bang swing. Again, not why they lost. Just it's one of these things where if the margin's that tight, it's a little maddening. What else?
I thought, Luka and Kyrie had a great game together. Obviously, Kyrie's second half was incredible. Before I get to how great it was, I do want to point out that Luka's second quarter was really disappointing. Yeah. And I think people are going to be mad at me because I'm not talking about his great stat line, 35, 9 and 9, 3 turnovers. He was really good. He was outside of that second quarter. It was almost a perfect game from him. He was really good. You mentioned it. I thought he adjusted well in the second half where they were giving him the mid-range and he finally took it. He was really well balanced offensively. I think he was forcing the issue a little bit with his passing in the first half, and I thought he made much cleaner reads in the second. So again, overall, he played a great game. But there was that moment in the second quarter when the Bucks went on a run, and it was just like we got zapped back to last season Luka, where it was just like him standing with his arms up in the air while 9 other players have already crossed half court before he does, and the team scoring fast break points.
Yeah.
I can't remember who hit the corner three. I think it was AJ Green hit a corner three in the second quarter.
Yeah.
That was, Luka was almost barely leaving the other paint, like not, the backcourt paint. And like there were all 4 of the 5 Bucks that already crossed half court. The only one that hadn't was Brook Lopez, the 7-foot center. And Luka was barely ahead of him. And the Bucks got a really easy corner three off of that transition opportunity. And that was really frustrating because he started the game defensively really well. And again, I know people are probably going to be mad that I'm maybe picking on Luka here, but again, he's the best player. And when he shows the ability to do it, it does the moments when he does it, I don't know, it just stands out a little bit more. It just felt like they kind of let go of the rope there in that second quarter when it looked like they could have a team on the second night of a back-to-back. You're looking for moments to kind of throw the killing blow. And they didn't, the Bucks, they just couldn't take control of the game in the first half the way they could have. Granted, they did it in the third quarter, but I feel like they could have had back-to-back great quarters if they were just a little bit more engaged across the board. So that was a little disappointing, but yeah, that Kyrie second half was outrageous.
Yeah, there's some chatter in the comments about fans, and this is not the first time I've heard this. I think there are a lot of fans that wish Kyrie was a little more aggressive early on. I would argue he was aggressive. Things just didn't go, and. Because
he needs to be a little more aggressive when when Luka's on the bench.
Yes.
He defers a little bit too much when he's the sole star on the floor, I think.
Yes. Yeah. And it's difficult because guys, like we've talked about this and it'll be a recurring thing. His foot thing is not going away. And we were talking in our Slack during the first quarter and a half or so, like, maybe his foot's just hurting him. It's not going to have it tonight. That's going to be a bit of a challenge. Not really much you can do there. He played really well. I think, if I'm going to be super nitpicky, Luka didn't defer to him enough in the fourth quarter when he was the one making shots. There was like a 2-possession thing where Luka took shots, including a long, like almost 17-footer from the left corner that didn't make any damn sense to me. But again, we're like parsing individual possessions, and I think the two played pretty well together. The Luka defense thing is interesting because he played really good defense for a quarter, played really bad defense for a quarter, and then resumed playing really pretty good defense.
Yeah.
He's figured out figured out strong. He is playing isolation possessions with a hell of a lot more gusto than he ever has before. And I think he'll continue to be tested all year because he's Luka, and when he's off, he's awful. But if he continues to give this kind of effort, the Mavericks, it's making a difference. Is where I'm going. I'm very pleased with that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this game was really reminiscent of that Philly game last season when they both scored over 40 and won. They just weren't able to close it this time. But this was a game that you watch and you're like, okay, I see it. They might not be the best roster in the NBA, but you look at these two and it's like, okay, on any given night, like these two could go supernova, and it doesn't matter how good the other team is, they're going to have a chance to win it because these are two of the best offensive players in basketball. So
yeah,
that's like a fun cheat code. Like it papers over a lot of warts. It papers over one of your starting forwards missing all 7 of his shots. It papers over, one of your other key young players, basically playing invisible for 19 minutes. It papers over the fact that you don't have any rim protection when your 19-year-old rookie hits the bench, which is an outrageous thing to say because I cannot believe how much is on Derek Lively's shoulders right now. So it's pretty incredible that they're able to keep them in these kind of games when you consider the flaws that the roster still has, even after last summer, which was great. It just kind of shows there's still room to work there. Do you want to talk about Lively there were some moments there where I was like, this might end up being his best game of the season. Just unfortunately, I think the foul trouble just didn't let him do it.
I do want to make a note of something because in the YouTube comments here, as we're going live, Nako in the chat says up 11 at the 7-minute mark and Kyrie goes out. Luka needs to find a way in that situation to get some good points, meaning scoring. Luka is awesome, but he has to make sure the team gets some points. I'm looking at the game log now, as I'm sure Nako is as well. We have a Grant Williams, 25-foot, missed three-pointer. Grant Williams, 23-foot, missed three-pointer. Luka Doncic, missed jump shot. Josh Green missed 23-foot three-pointer. Grant Williams missed 23-foot three-pointer. It was a 2-minute stretch, and they just couldn't find a bucket. And Kid got Kyrie back in there, and yeah, I mean that was the game. It was maddening, but that was the game. Where things went decided. I'm not necessarily sure. I mean, sometimes things just go to hell, you know. It was like there's just elements of this game where if you overthink it, the more frustrated you get with it, and sometimes things just go sideways. I haven't done my normal. I usually at about the 10 to 15-minute mark do my normal. Hey guys, go ahead and like this live stream. It's very helpful to us. If you could do that, I would appreciate it. If you could also consider subscribing to our show, we go live at least after every game, one of these shows, and then I host a fan show, as everybody knows, where you guys can come talk basketball with me after this. I'm going to do that one tonight because I'm rather awake for some reason. It's fun to talk after these losses. It's more productive to talk to your fellow man than it is to get on Twitter or to go to Reddit and do that sort of thing. You talk a little basketball. Basketball talking is fun even when we are upset about the game and we can laugh about it. Okay. I don't know how to talk about this last thing. Do you?
Do we have to talk about Josh Green?
I mean, we have to, man.
Can we just repeat terrible. What we said last game and the game before and the game before that? I mean, I'm kind of running out of what to say about him.
He played 20 minutes. He came off the bench. He was a negative 27 in 20 minutes. You can't assign the game faults to him, but he's such a non-contributor that I'm running out of reasons to say it's not all his fault.
Yeah. I think the thing is, and I'm going to be a broken record because I feel like I said this last game and the game before that. Last season, his shooting was an outlier.
I mean, incandescently hot.
Yeah. I mean, this is a guy that had like an 80 true shooting percentage, like going into Christmas, like something around that. Like it was sorry, I keep having to take my glasses off because my room is a little steamy, so I keep fogging up my glasses. There was no way in hell he was going to replicate his shooting from last season. It was just way too improbable, and he wasn't going to improve on it because if he improved on it, he would basically be like freaking Dr. Manhattan hovering above the planet. Like there's no way he was going to be able to be better than that. So really, some people might be like, well, he's not a scorer, I'm not being hard on him or not disappointed in him because his shooting and his scoring has fallen back down to earth a little bit. Like that doesn't factor into my evaluation of him at all. I had it built in. I was like, he's probably going to take a slight step back on offense because that shooting last season was just absurd. To me, the thing that's just really troubling to me is the defensive regression is shocking. Like it's not just that he's not better than he was last season. He looks worse defensively than last season. And this is his fourth year. And he's supposed to be on the floor to play defense. Like the offense is a bonus. Like, yeah, it was really cool when Luka and Kyrie were out last season and he looked like, Paul George Jr. in some of those games where he was scoring 23 points and running dribble handoffs and almost acting like an offensive hub. And I was like, yeah, that stuff is awesome. But that's, again, for a player like him and his role on this team, that's a bonus. They need defenders in the worst way. And the fact that he is not able to put his stamp on the game on the defensive end of the floor is really frustrating, especially for a guy that has shown that in the past, maybe not always consistently as you like, but you were just wondering, okay, can he string it together? And it's not just that he's stringing it together. It's like everything's unraveled. Like He's not connected to screen. He cannot get around screens, which has been bothering him since his rookie year. He's still overhelping on offense, but now it's just
the
like
screen stuff is stupid. The overhelping I get. The screen stuff is stupid.
You just got to be better.
Like Kyrie Irving is not known as a great defender, and I watched that dude hustle over screens all night tonight. And Josh Green runs into a screen like it's the first time he's ever seen one every fucking time.
Yeah, and then he's not. His one-on-one defense isn't like it. There's just nothing like to look at that's like this. He's doing a great. Like his passing is still there. He still makes like 1 or 2 passes that are really nice. He should have had 4. He had 3 assists. He should have had 4. He made a really nice pass to Jones on the break that Jones got blocked from behind. So like the talent's still there. It's just he was kind of like a ball of clay his first few seasons because of the unfortunate circumstance of his development with his I don't think he started playing basketball until he was a little bit older. Then his college season gets short with COVID. Yeah. His rookie season gets cut short with COVID, basically. Like he's not playing a lot. Like he didn't get to go to his first 2 summer leagues because of the pandemic and national team stuff. And it's like, okay, like he's going to be a slow burn because of the way his professional career started, which is very unique, but he's had multiple training camps now. This is his 4th season in the NBA. Like we're getting farther and farther away from that type of excuse. And again, I'm not knocking him because he's not scoring 12 points.
He's getting chances. He's getting plenty of chances. This is not like him getting pulled after 7 minutes of action.
Right. And again, I don't care that he scored 3 points. Is it great? No. But Derrick Jones Jr. scored 0, and he contributed way more in this game than Green did. So again, it's not the scoring. I just need to see some consistency on the defensive end. And for a guy as athletic as him and as quick as him, it just does not make sense. I understand that he's a little small. So like, yeah, he's not going to guard Giannis. He's not going to guard these big wings, but he's the type of guy that like against you look at this roster as like who guards Damian Lillard. It needs to be Josh Green. He needs to be the point of attack guy. And if you can't navigate screens, you cannot be a point of attack defender. There's as many pick and rolls that get run in the NBA every night. Like if you can't navigate screens, how are you going to be a point of attack defender? Because that's like the main thing you have to do to stay connected to ball handlers on the floor. So yeah, I don't know. The shooting, the scoring, it's whatever. The defense, like I'm just stunned that he's not making more of an impact on the defensive end. Mm-hmm. That's a shame.
Yep. And had the Mavericks somehow pulled one out tonight, we probably still would have talked about it, but it stands out more in a loss. And like that number, that -27, while single game plus minus is not really a thing, is pretty dang whoa kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's another loss where they give up 130. Like, every single game they've been giving up points. Like it's not like they lost, but it was a rock fight. Like they lost and they couldn't get a stop again. And this is one of the guys on the roster that you want to get stops from. So
right. Well, I saw something in the chat earlier. I can't find it, but it was basically a criticism saying this offense still feels too heliocentric. It's my turn, your turn with Kyrie Irving. I don't agree with that generally. I do agree with that in the fourth quarter tonight. Like there was a lot of and granted, Kyrie was hitting shots, so it's okay. But like, can we run an action? Can we do something?
They did in the third quarter, which was funny. Luka screened for Kyrie in the third quarter, and Kyrie got a bucket.
Right. It's always an interesting thing. It's when isolation play works, you don't care, and when you lose a game, it's really easy to be like, this is part of the problem. So I thought that's a funny question.
I mean, they got the heliocentric stuff. You talk about it like not working, but they got 6 corner threes in the fourth quarter, and they missed 5 of them.
Mm-hmm. This is a good.
You make 3 of those miss. You make 3 of those 5 misses, and I don't think people are like, why are they heliocentric? They generated pretty good looks in the fourth. They just didn't make them.
Yeah, this is a funny question. I feel the need to actually bring it up in the chat. Fan123 says, any Mavs media member going to go up to Josh Green face to face and actually call him out? For logistical purposes, no, this is why I want to explain this. Like for logistical purposes, the media doesn't really get to do that anymore. They bring out guys to talk to the media in these press settings, and they tend to only bring out 2 to 3 guys, and that's if you're lucky. There's Jason Kidd always speaks, and then you get a chance with other players. Josh Green, I don't think has been brought out to talk the entire year. So there's not really an opportunity to do that post game. Now, there's practices and there's times where the folks who do go to the day-to-day, your beat coverage, kind of your Brad Townsend, your Grant Afseth, who are there and kind of just have to go through the slog. They're not going to do that. Why are they not going to do that? Because it ruins the relationship. If you're like, hey, friendo, why are you not playing very well? Even if it's fair, they're just not going to do it. I understand why it frustrates you, but I used to not understand this either. But now I understand kind of the relationship parts of it, and it's tough. It's that sort of thing just isn't going to happen. Now, Green, when he does speak to media, is always candid. He's not a guy who runs from stuff. So I think that the next time he does get made available, he'll probably be willing to address his struggles. Like he'll probably note it, but he's just, I don't know. I feel bad for the Green of it all because he's sort of a butt of he's sort of emblematic of a larger conversation where the team made great strides this offseason. This team, I think we're all pretty confident, and we should be confident that they are a playoff team. They're a playoff team, not a play-in team, a playoff team. At least that's my opinion. What do you think, Josh?
I think so too. I think that they're definitely, I mean, I'm going to write about it, I think next week, but there are definitely some aspects where you could be a little worried that it might not be that much of a lock, but still. Worried,
but they're not a top 2 seed. Like if they would have won tonight, they would have been the number 1 team in the Western Conference. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
They would have been 9. They would have been 10. So they're 9-3 right now. They would have been 10-3 because the Nuggets lost. And so it's like the Mavericks are not the number 1 team in the conference. They are probably safely a 5-6, maybe 4 team if they're very lucky, and injuries can take things sideways. And what a game like tonight does, and what a Nuggets game definitely does, is expose how the things that they still have to improve. You know, the size thing isn't going to be fixed overnight. Yeah, you mentioned that earlier. It's very important.
The size thing is a roster thing. It's not a scheme
and maybe
thing.
It'll happen this year, but like, do you give up all, like, to get a little bigger at the 4, which is a position you can address in free agency? Like it really, really is Dallas Mavericks. I swear there are a bunch of 6'9" guys that exist that you can play. But Nako also, this is a great comment. 9-4 is a great start for the Mavs. The national media didn't think they would be this good. We didn't think they would be this good. So I'm like, big picture, pretty okay. They might get slapped tomorrow night by the Kings because the Kings are a bit of a handful and kind of but the Mavericks could be fine. Like I don't know. I tend to, and this is just, me making myself the main character, but I tend to think that given how I'm prone to overreactions, if I'm not super worried at this point, I don't think you should be either.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the thing that everyone would almost agree with is you feel pretty confident in them when they're playing bad teams, which is not something anyone felt last season. So that's a win. And really, if you think about like making the playoffs, it's all about who beats the bad team. Like if you beat the bad teams and just, you don't even have to worry about who you beat outside of that. Like if you lose all your games to like top 4 seeds, but you beat all the lottery teams, you're going to make the playoffs because there's more lottery teams than there are top 4 seeds. Hopefully I'm doing my math right, but I'm pretty sure that's right. So again, I feel pretty confident in them when they're playing a bad team because this offense is just too good for teams that are, not prepared for them on that end. There's definitely some things that could go sideways for them, which I don't feel like talking about tonight, in terms of like, hey, the defense is still way too bad. And they're getting some really good shooting from spots of the floor that you don't normally would think that they would be shooting so well from, above the break threes primarily. So it's like, okay, what if they hit a cold spell and their defense still looks like this? Then yeah, they might slump and they might start losing some games, but they haven't lost 2 in a row yet, I don't think, all season. So we'll wait and see when that happens. I think it's best, get to Thanksgiving, maybe get to Christmas, then we can readjust and see where this team's at. But, right now, like I said, yeah, like you said, no reason to hit a panic button at all, for sure.
Okay, here's what we're going to do. I have the next live show scheduled in about 5 minutes. I would love it if you all backed out of this, hopped into that show and waited for me and came and talked a little basketball with me for, 20 to 30 minutes. Here's the thing though. We also play again tomorrow night. I'm a member of the team. So yeah, we'll try to keep it brief, and then we'll have a good time talking hoops, and we'll be back at this tomorrow night, 6:30 start time local. And then I also got to write the recap tonight because we dropped the ball on that one. But it's a Saturday night. It's a Saturday night game. I don't think anybody's coming to Mavs Moneyball for the hot off the press coverage. All right, team. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. This has been Kirk Henderson and Josh Bowe. We will talk with you guys soon. Go Mavs.